Go.
Okay, so we're in the process of putting shock absorbers on a 98 Chevy S10 Blazer. It's got about 116,000 miles on it. And we're here on the bench. We've got the new parts laid out. Here's a front shock, okay, and here is a back shock. We've already done one of the fronts and we're getting ready to go to the back. So you can see there's quite a bit of difference in terms of how these are actually configured. This one attaches to the frame through a large bolt in the back. This again is the back. This white strap is what the manufacturer has put on in order to keep the shock absorber compressed while it lives on the shelf at the parts house. This will eventually be cut off, okay? So when we get ready to do that, of course, we'll remove that, but that's just for shipping for now, so that comes off later. On the new shock, we got two bolts here, and then there's one cap nut that comes over the top. And let's talk a little bit about how this actually goes together on the top, because that can get a little bit confusing. So there's a set of bushings. There's actually two of these, we'll call them cap washers, and then there's two bushings themselves, okay? And they're actually different on either side. This has got like a small ring here, and on this one we've got a larger ring. The larger ring is going to mate up to this piece here, okay? So when everything is put together, it goes like this. Like so. Then we're going to take the larger piece with the smaller end facing up. Then the actual suspension on the car goes here. Small end down. So small end to small end, they meet in the middle, and that's where the actual suspension would be. Place the cap on top. The nut follows that. So that's how it's going to end up in the car. And then of course we're bolted up to the lower, I believe the A-frame down in the bottom of the car. What this car also has too is that when you remove the old shock absorber, there's a flexible cup that comes over the top, and we're going to actually pull that off of the other shock absorber and put that on the new one. And it looks kind of ratty, but it's there for a purpose, and it keeps the shaft clean. It keeps dirt and water and so forth, at least to some extent, off of the shock absorber. So it's a part that you reuse, and it comes out with the old shock. Notice here too is that the way this is configured, it's sort of at an angle, right? And the way to kind of keep track of that is that it goes in at a T-piece. So if this is the center of the car, it goes in this direction, okay? And that's just one way in case you get kind of messed up in terms of, well, which way did it actually go on? That's how it's going to go, if you can visualize that up through the upper suspension. So we're going to go ahead here and remove the shock absorber from the passenger side now. And I've got a couple of tools here that help me do that, and you don't really need all this stuff to do it. I mean, some basic hand tools. I have lifted the car up because once you start to take the shock absorber apart, you need the room to pull it out and from underneath the car. So things have to move up. I have a jack stand in place too, because I don't rely on just a floor jack to hold the car up. We always have something else that's rigid holding it up off the ground, so in case something falls or causes a problem. So let's poke the camera down inside here and we'll see where the target nut is to the top of the shock. And if I manage to get this light straightened around, I'm going to use this ruler as kind of a pointer. That's the target right there. That's the nut that I'm going to try and take off. And you can see that maybe you can't, maybe you can, the bushing is squished way down. I'm not going to do it quite that tight. Looks a little over tight to me, but that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to use an impact gun to get that off. So here we go. Okay, pan back a little bit and the nut fell down inside the suspension, so I'll have to get that later. We're going to crawl underneath the car now. What I'm going to do is take an air ratchet, and I'm going to undo those two bolts that are holding it on, and then the shock itself is just going to pull out from underneath the suspension. So let's go down there. Get this light. Okay, there's the 2 bolts that I'm after right here. 1, 2. Okay, they're a little tight, so I gotta break them loose. Here's the cup that I was talking about that comes off and goes onto the new shock absorber. It's the old parts. Alright, let's go over to the bench. So what I'm going to do is start from the bottom of the car, set this up just like this, put this weather boot on, washer, and these parts, the old ones, are actually laying inside the car now. I'll fish those out here in just a minute. So this will be fed up inside to the car. Might have to do a little adjustment here to get this tilted in at the right dimension. 2 bolts, 1 on the top, and that takes care of the front shock. Thanks.